I think it's rolling now. So in this one, we have The Core.
The Core.
So you want to talk about physical media and streaming and...
I mean, it's all going digital, and that's a good thing, it's all going digital.
Well, yeah, that's how that works.
No, it kind of back to a point I've kind of made in the past that kind of like films and TV shows nowadays are kind of going the same way that basically kind of back in the day, like computer games went. Because there used to be a time when you could like just walk into like WH Smith's and get like a boxed PC game.
Mm.
And like, it's just like nowadays, like you would struggle to even get like a PC with like a CD drive, like, usually it's like an external thing now. Like in some ways you could even do without that. Like it's not an essential part of the kit anymore.
Because this is something that you got last year, you got an Xbox or something, and you struggled or whatever to get one with a physical...
Yeah, it was the PlayStation 5, because I was getting like a second-hand, not exactly second-hand, but basically I was getting it cheaper because it had been sent back because there was some damage to the box. And this was back like when getting like a PlayStation 5 was absolutely like ridiculously hard, like back when there was the real shortages and stuff on. So it's like, fuck it, I'm just snapping it up. And I'm like, well, the picture on the box is of the disc drive version that you can have like physical games for. But it's like, is that correct? Like, it said this is something that's been sent back to the marketplace. So, like, luckily when it came, it was the version with the disc drive. But yeah, you could get a cheaper version of the PS5 that came like without a disc drive at all, and you just download games from the PlayStation like directly.
So why is it for you having a physical media option for gaming? Why is that important?
Honestly, because it's frequently fucking cheaper. I mean, this is just purely with games, but like often I will like go between like, all right, how much is it on PlayStation? Right, how much is it on like Amazon? Well, okay, actually Amazon's like £5-6 cheaper, and I don't mind waiting a day or so for it to get here. It's usually pretty quick. Like, you're not. It's like the difference between like, right, I'm going to get it now and then have to download it for like an hour or two, or I can just have the physical copy tomorrow and install it, off the disc. Yeah. And then I've physically got the disc, so I don't have to like fuck around with anything. I've physically got it. If my internet's down or something, I can still like slap it in the disc drive and play it.
Yeah.
But computers have one like massive advantage over films in that way. Like, if my internet's down and I've already downloaded something, usually you can still play it unless it's like one of these online only things. But yeah, go on, what were you saying?
Well, similar with films, obviously. I mean, you can see from my background, and obviously I've talked about this on the channel before, I'm a big advocate for physical media. For a number of reasons, like the aesthetics of having discs on your shelves, not just the discs, but the cases, the collectible covers, all that kind of stuff. Some people go mental for stuff like going to like steel books and stuff. That's not really my thing, but as long as I've got something physical, to me, I always say, it's physical media matters just like private property rights matter. It's this whole thing about you alone and nothing, and you will be happy premise, whether that's money, having physical money, cash, or figures on a screen that somebody manipulates, be it a bank or a government or whatever. Physical media, and obviously owning your own collection is important to me. And saying, well, I own an online stream for it, that doesn't cut it. Okay, you own it, lend me it then, okay, without giving me your login details for your like Amazon account or whatever. Good luck doing that with Netflix as well. Give me your Netflix login. Let's see how far we get with that.
Well, like a lot of them are cracking down on like password sharing and stuff.
Yeah.
Like oh, go on, sorry.
Well, yeah, I'll finish my point now. So the other day, I was running at my girlfriend's house. We were going to watch a film on. It was on Amazon Prime, and it was part of it. Was, well, not one that you pay for, but it's one that you pay for it because you pay for Amazon Prime. But it was on there, and I mean, luckily we did manage to get it working, but we really struggled because our internet connection was going down. No, she doesn't have a Blu-ray player. She doesn't want it. She doesn't believe in physical media in the sense that I do. And how's that working out for you? It almost didn't for us the other day. Had we been at my house, I have a physical copy of the film here, so it wouldn't have been a problem. But we've seen that many times before, where you're at the mercy of an internet connection, you're at the mercy of the thing actually working or being available, just in general. When it comes to, you want to watch a specific film, it's not the same as having a physical media collection. So there's a number of issues with that. I'll let you. Sorry.
Yeah, like I say, it is also the case of, like, it used to be like you could just go to Netflix and you could get more or less whatever you wanted. Maybe you might have to have like a second thing like Amazon Prime or something. But between the two, you were pretty like guaranteed to track the film down you wanted, unless it was really obscure. But now, like, Disney wants in on it, HBO wants in on it, Paramount wants in on it, like, and suddenly it's like, well, okay, I mean, I can at the moment just sit down and watch this film. But in a couple of months, well, now it's only on HBO Max. I don't have HBO Max, so like, how exactly am I going to see it? Just go like, well, fuck it, I'll watch something else, or do I now have to shell out for yet another subscription to get what I want? It's kind of went a little bit like that on PC, because when it first started, like people moving away from like physical like discs for PC, pretty much anything you wanted, all you needed was Steam. But then it's like, well, Ubisoft, they've got their own thing. EA's got their own thing. And sometimes even stupider with that, it's like, well, I've got to have Steam, but I've also got to have Uplay, the Ubisoft like launcher. And if there's a problem between those two launchers communicating on your system, you still can't play the game because both of them have to work. Now it's like, fuck. Like, why?
Yeah. So not just that as well, but we've seen a few issues recently. I mean, you've got some sort of minor issues where films have had things censored out of them. So we've got the whole culture war, mind virus infecting things with regards to censorship of certain content, films, TV shows, that kind of thing. We've even seen that slipping into physical media with books and so on as well. But interestingly, we've seen entire TV series just being completely memory holed for one reason or another. In some instances, it's probably for the betterment of the human race that these things were memory holed. But obviously, I'm joking. But still, just on general principle, tell us about the Willow TV series.
Well, like I said, I was going to get to that, but like it's interesting what you say about like things changing, because again, you do get that in PC games. So a lot of these are always online, which kind of started out as just a thing for kind of massively multiplayer online games, MMOs. But it's kind of moved on to other systems, like all these live services and this, that, and the other, that you always have to be online to play. And there's like a constant, like, oh, if you want this, you need to pay for it. If you want that, you need to pay for it. All this, like, I can remember a period where like people would riot if this started happening. But now it's just normal. So it's like, well, how long before stuff like that is normalized with like fucking subscription TV? And like when you talk about things changing, you do get that with games. Because I remember a review I was watching of this racing game. I think it was like Trackmania or something. And the guy was pointing out, like, I thought I was going insane, but I remember the like graphics being like different. And this was like a game he was playing offline, playing single player. And it's like, no, I've gone back to like footage of like the game before this last update. And they have. It's like they've changed the graphics. Some are arguably better. Other times it's like a straight up downgrade. I mean, it's basically like kind of how we have with like Star Wars. It's like, I mean, I've known people who do prefer the like special editions because of like the fancied up special effects and like the extra stuff that's put in. But there's also stuff about it that's arguably shit.
Yeah.
It's like we didn't need like Hayden Christensen. I mean, that doesn't personally bother me, but I know it bugs some people. We didn't need like people going back and like changing like, all the voice now to match Jango Fett and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like this stuff wasn't needed, and there's like no option to go back to like, okay, I actually prefer it when Han Solo shoots first. It makes sense, and like this kind of bullshit version. It's like stuff like that, as it becomes more like readily accepted, it's like, well, if it's online all the time and they decide, oh, well, this, this scene doesn't fit our new, like,
regime
goals
narrative
and stuff. Yeah. Like, whatever ideology we're dealing with at the moment, we've just cut it. Well, it's like, but I own this. Why are you going back and changing stuff? It's like, well, what's to stop them? And it has now got to the point that they are like actually deleting like TV shows. Now this was again a thing with video games, because actually this has actually started to get a bit more mainstream, like the preservation of old games. Because it used to be like, I mean, yeah, if your disc breaks, your disc breaks, but you can usually get versions of older games. But now you'll have games which are like, well, this was online only. You can't play it without a central server. Unless there's some obsessed fans like geniuses out there who figure out how to reverse engineer a server and they don't get taken down with like copyright.
Yeah.
This game is now gone forever. Like you will never be able to play it again. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, indifferent. It's gone. Like this thing is fucking gone. And now you're starting to see that with online stuff, like say the Willow series. Like I actually did look into this, not because I particularly wanted to see that piece of shit, but it's like, well, can you actually watch it anywhere? Has it been released anywhere else? Is it like no? It's just gone. It's like, yeah, the show's a piece of shit, and from the stuff I've heard about it, I have no interest in watching it.
Yeah.
But I also like an argument that was made by this guy who first like brought me on to this whole like game preservation things. Because I got to watch this YouTuber called Ross. He like does Freeman's Mind and Game Dungeon and stuff. And he was the first one that started complaining about like these games just like, right, they're online only. They are based on life support. The moment the company decides to pull the plug, it's gone. You're never going to play this again. And he made like the excellent point. It's like, okay, this isn't arguably a very good game, but how do you know what's going to inspire someone? Like, just because you don't see any artistic merit in it or like in the various composition of it, like, yeah, maybe the gameplay's shit, but the level design's brilliant, or like the music's like fucking stellar. Like, who knows who in the future would come along, see that, and be like, God, this game's a piece of shit, but I actually kind of like that, and I could do something with that, and gets inspired to do their own thing. It's like, yeah, Willow's an ideologically driven piece of shit, but maybe somewhere in the future, somebody will be like, actually, the score's not bad on this, and get inspired, or like, what, this is absolute dreck, but I like some of the ideas, and I could actually do something good with these ideas rather than the shit they've churned out.
Yeah, it was like Halloween 3, like pretty naff film, but the soundtrack is amazing.
And it's like somebody could watch that and be like, well, this is stupid, it doesn't make any sense, but then be like, but I could see how I could take the basic ideas of this and make this into something much better that's my own. But if you've basically thrown that in the fucking trash, they'll never be able to watch that. They'll never be able to see it. They'll never be able to, like, take what they want from this, like, piece of shit and make it something good. Like, you never know what somebody's going to be inspired by.
Yeah.
And
So
it's not just Willow, because there's another series. This was HBO, I think. Something like that. But basically, they were getting rid of a lot of their animated stuff. And there was this show called Final Space, which is kind of like a comedy space sci-fi thing. Reminded me a little bit of Red Dwarf, but more cartoony.
Yeah.
But that kind of like, the guy's like a fuck up and stuff, And arguably, it's actually quite a good series. And that was one of the ones that's basically like, yeah, it's gone. They're basically not posting it on their own like thing anymore. I mean, as of now, you can still see it on Netflix in the UK. But I don't know how long that's lasting for, if it's going to ever be released anywhere else. I mean, a lot of this, like Disney Plus Marvel stuff, like if Disney fucking dies, which is unlikely, but we don't fucking know. Like, you tell me they're going to save all this shit like they've been churning out on Disney Plus. Even Disney have taken one look at Willow and gone, fuck it.
We saw this. I mean, you'll know this as a Doctor Who fan and me, an Avengers fan, not Marvel. I mean, I like the Marvel Avengers, but I'm talking about the old series with Patrick Macnee, John Steed, all that stuff from the 60s, British spy TV show. A lot of those early on, anyway, they didn't have the kind of inkling that maybe at some point this stuff would have a fan following and would be worth preserving in any way. Understandable back then because media, entertainment, movies, TV shows, the whole idea of having home video was something obviously ahead of where they were actually at that point. So they didn't preserve these, and a lot of them, especially with Doctor Who, is just gone into the memory hole, never to be seen again.
Doctor Who, Z-Cars, like a lot of these early TV series. And it was more than that. It wasn't just like, oh, we can't foresee a future where people would have like home video and things. At the time, and like this sounds really stupid to us now, there were genuine concerns, for example, amongst like actors. It's like, okay, if we just do a performance on, a TV show, and then they can show this TV show for like as often as they want. What's going to happen to our jobs? Because there's going to be no new plays, there's going to be no new like shows. Like it sounds daft to us now, but if you imagine at the time, what they're used to is theatre. Like every time you do a play, you've got to get the cast back, you've got to get them up on stage, you've got to do it again.
Yeah,
and they were pushing for that with TV. Like you can't keep it; you've got to like redo it new each and every time.
Yeah,
like that was a genuine kind of like mindset of some people at the time.
Yeah,
like as dumb as it sounds now, and it probably did grow out of quite quickly. That was a very small factor, but it was there.
Yeah,
it was
also
just like the expense of storing like film, because it was really expensive to keep.
Yeah,
really difficult to store.
Yeah, it was a fire hazard as well.
And like I say, just keeping it was expensive because you could reuse it, shoot something new over it, which saved you a lot of money. Like physically keeping it, as well as just like fire hazard and like the other things that could knacker the film. They were huge fucking cans as well. Like these weren't easy to store. I mean, there's one guy who goes around like trying to restore old Doctor Who series and Z-Cars and like all these other like early BBC programs like Dixon and Doc Green and all this. And he'd said like he went into at least one like foreign station where they'd stored the stuff improperly, and you could just this like smell of vinegar hit him for all this decaying like film stocks. It hadn't been stored properly. It was like it just brought tears to your eyes, not just because of like all this loss, but just because it was that fucking powerful a smell. Like Jesus.
Yeah, I think we had a similar issue when we went round to the Tofas, but it was more like bleach rather than vinegar, I think. So.
Well, I mean, definitely brought tears to Buff's eyes.
Then there's something about reshoots as well, but we won't go there. So
with like a lot of these digital only, like, oh, this is our content for our streaming service. It's like they don't want to release it physically. Like, I mean, they're like, oh yeah, we've got a steelbook version of WandaVision. It doesn't have a disc.
Yeah, what the hell?
Physical version. I think there have been enough people kicked off about that. They are releasing a physical version of it. I vaguely heard, but I'm not even sure about that. It could be a fucking joke. Like it could just be an empty steelbook.
It was annoying because, like, as a fan of the MCU back in the day, up till Endgame, for myself, I'm just speaking for myself there, but I was a big collector of the actual films physically when they came out. I bought them on Blu-ray, and then when 4K came out, I upgraded. And then obviously there was things like the Netflix TV shows and also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which early on were quite good and definitely was supposed to be canon with the movies, even though it was debatable. And then they just stopped like physically releasing them. So even if it was just like, well, you can physically have the movies but not the TV shows, they actually started releasing the Netflix shows like Daredevil and so on. And then they got up to like, I think it was Luke Cage, as far as that, and then they just stopped releasing them. So like the Punisher TV series with Jon Bernthal, that first season, I thought was really good, but you never got a chance to physically own it. And it's like, well, the way I interact with this franchise is that I own it and I have that kind of connection to it, that it's part of my collection. It's like if somebody was into collecting flowers and having vases and stuff, and then all of a sudden they no longer have that. They have a photograph of some flowers, but you own it. It's like it's just not the same. You know what I mean? And also the fact
that into NFTs with the like, yep, you own this. No, I own a string of code somewhere that says it's connected to this thing that it's not connected to.
Yeah,
I don't actually own that bowl of flowers. I don't even own the picture of the bowl of flowers.
And a big issue as well with physical media as well is the bits per second that you get from a physical disc are way greater than what you get on streaming. And I know we've had John on the show before, and obviously he's an advocate for streaming, which, you know, has its advantages, don't get me wrong, and he's got some valid points. But I always go back to saying, although he might say, well, the internet streaming now can do this, yeah, but what the actual content that is being put out by these providers, it caters to the lowest common denominator, those with a slow speed. So it doesn't matter what your speed is, what you are streaming / downloading is a very compressed version of what you would otherwise get on a disc. So that's why you have things like color banding. You can tell what's streamed and what isn't. I mean, the compression technology is very good. It's got a lot better than it was, but it's not as good as what you get on a disc, and you can tell the difference.
And like I say, it comes back to like, okay, like when it comes to owning a game on Steam, like I say, unless it's like an MMO or something that needs a central server, I can at least download it onto my system from Steam, and it will be on there. So if the internet's down, unless it's one of these with some stupid artificial digital rights management that needs it to always be online, I can still play it. But if like my internet's down and I'm like, right, shit, I'm gonna go watch The Mongolian or something. It's like, well, tough shit. Like you can't watch it. Your internet's down. You can't. Like there's no if and or buts. Like you're done.
You meant The Mandalorian, just a slight mispronunciation.
That is what I said. I don't know what you heard.
Yeah.
Of course, I knew what I was saying. That was not a mistake. God damn.
I know. So we'll have to wrap this up because we're just going to keep it at 20 minutes. But any final points? Give you another couple of minutes.
Like I say, the thing is, like people kind of pish posh it, like, oh, this is nothing. Like you're worrying about nothing. It's gonna be fine. Like how often does my internet go down? Like this, that, and the other. Like these things were all the same with video games. Like people are like, oh, well, you know, digital rights management, it's no big deal. Oh, downloadable content, that's not going to lead anywhere. Oh, loot boxes, they're fine. Like gaming is a fucking shit show right now, thanks to a lot of this stuff. Where every other thing is a fucking live service that's trying to constantly milk you for that little bit extra money.
And
it
just seem like games.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So it does seem like games usually one of the first things to get hit by these changes, because we saw this with like Gamergate, and obviously the whole toxic stuff of feminism hit that, and then it kind of a few years later leaked into like movies and TV shows as well.
Like I say, I can still remember the time when something as simple as like, oh, £5 for horse armor in Elder Scrolls Oblivion was like, oh, this is like a huge thing. Like everybody was up in arms about it and stuff. And now you've literally got right. You've got to pay like 10 quid to get a couple of loot boxes. You will not get what you want in those loot boxes. You'll have to open hundreds of the bloody things. And that's just now normal to the point of like, oh, we can't make games without that. Ooh.
Yeah.
There's no way we can do that. It's like the same with like films. It's like they were actually making money off physical media. That was a really good thing. But then they saw like, well, shit, Netflix is making bank here. So we want that slice of the pie. It's like, okay, but Netflix was making that money because it was drawing it in from all sources, all different studios. Like it was taking everything in and then redistributing it. The moment you start cutting stuff off into your own little like private kingdom, like even if you were a fucking hardcore Marvel and didn't give a shit about all the like stupid like dropping quality and crap storytelling they've had lately, even if you were still hardcore obsessed with that, it's not going to keep you going. There's not enough content there to make it worth your goddamn while.
Yeah. We'll have to wrap this up anyway, but like I say, if there's like one takeaway that, you know, anyone watching this should have from this, is beware of scams when it comes to being put onto a subscription-based business model. And it's not just things like physical media and streaming, but we see this with things. I mean, one other example would be like vaccines, for example. I'm not saying whether they work or don't work. I'm not talking about a specific one as such, but you tend to see this where rather than it being a one-shot deal, they're getting you onto a gravy train and having you keep coming back for more. And this only works if you keep coming back on this subscription-based model rather than having like a one-and-done kind of thing. You obviously see this with slot machines as well, with like computer games, where it's not just you put this in and the game is yours kind of thing. They always had kids like putting the coins through the machine, because obviously that's where the big earner comes from. It's a scam. It's all a big scam. So we see this
and
with
plus,
a lot
back
of
in the day, it used to be easier to manage it because you'd see how much you're spending. But anyway, I'm going to have to run because I think somebody's at the door. So wrap up.
No worries.
All right.
All right. See you later. Bye.